It's been suggested that Stephen Hawking's school is good time. My fourth grade bit. Cool.
Hey.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Elle Woods, and this is Freezer Woods, and we're both Gemini business. Recording in progress. Ballet, and I'm president of my school. And last year I was home community. Oh, 2 weeks ago I saw Cameron Diaz at Fred Siegel, and I talked her out of one truly award. Whoever said orange is the new pink was seriously disturbed. Freezer, this is my first class as a serious law student.
What are you talking about? Are you just me?
No, silly.
You go where?
Perfect.
You got into Harvard Law?
What, a guitar? Or it's gonna be so great. I'm planning this great mixer. You totally have to help me. I'm thinking like a luau or maybe like casino night. This is gonna be just like senior year, except with fire.
Funny.
I go. I have to go class, but meet me after on the benches, okay?
Hi, Tony.
Good afternoon, good evening, whatever you want to call it.
All right, I'm going to just do a welcome to everybody here, okay, and everybody at home.
Wonderful. Yes, I think we have about 9 people there, but I think, is that what you're expecting?
Yeah, I think so. That sounds fab. I think we've got some people who are here and partners are at home, so I think we've got a bit of both. But welcome to everybody who is at home or in work. Apologies for you if you are. Welcome to everybody in the hall. Please excuse me if I talk mostly to the people in the hall. Tony is recording this, so hopefully you can hear everything. If there's any issues, Tony, if you could shout me if there's any issues, if you can't hear me, please. Thank you. Welcome everybody. It's so nice to be able to actually see people face to face again in school, because it obviously has been quite a long time since we've been able to do this. It's nice to just feel like everybody's back together again. Obviously, I'm aware of the COVID restrictions still, and advice. Obviously, we've got cases around, so hence why we've given you as much opportunity to spread out in the hall. The doors and windows are open. Sorry if it's a little cold. But as I can see, people have been sensible and chosen how to sit. So thank you for that. So the purpose of tonight's meeting is to give you as much information as we can about the hopeful, possible trip to China. I say hopeful and possible, nothing to do with school. We have the money that is going to be guaranteed from the Turing Foundation, just more in case of any restrictions to do with COVID. We will talk a little bit about that at the end. And obviously, if you've got any questions, we'll answer those as well. Tonight's meeting, we have got a guest host who is Tony Camilleri joining us. Tony is from a company called True Partnerships, who have organised lots and lots of trips to China over the years for primary and secondary school children. She and the company have obviously got a lot of experience, and so the questions that you have in terms of what happens in China, she'll be able to give us a lot of detail on those. Tony, we met a couple of years ago when I went over to China, and Tony's company basically organised that trip out there, the purpose of which was for us to set up a sister school. We've not been able to host a reciprocal visit, so when the opportunity for the Turing scheme came around, Tony got in touch and informed me about it and said, you should apply for this funding. The Turing scheme is brand new this year. It's what the government have set up instead of Erasmus. And when we basically went through Brexit, when we left the European Union, the Erasmus was no longer applicable to us. So they created this and they promised that it was going to be bigger and better. And that's allowed for us to access this pot of funding. Obviously, I had to write quite a lengthy application talking about what the children would get out of this learning experience. But obviously, all the things that Tony and I, and then we put together in this application, were deemed as really valuable for your children, the opportunities that they could have by going on this trip and this experience to China. So we know, we both, sorry, everyone at home, is everyone okay to mute themselves at home, please? Thank you. We know that your children will get lots from this opportunity if you do choose for them to come to China with us. I'm going to hand to Tony so we can go through the slideshow because she's got lots of information. Then we'll do some questions as we go through at the end. So if you've got a notepad and you want to make any notes for any questions, you know, please let me know. I'm sure Tony will send the slides to us and I can forward them to you as well, so that you can look at them again over this week while you're then making your decision about whether you'd like your child to come to China with us. Tony, are you there?
I am. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Wonderful. And you can see the screen, okay? So it says trip to China on it.
Yep.
Wonderful.
Hold on, let me just ask I'm just trying to see if we can make it a bit bigger.
Okay.
Anybody help me? Tech people, please. How do I get off it? I'm not used to Zoom. I do Google Meets.
Close that on there. I think it's.
Oh yeah. So is that just because she's sharing?
Oh yeah.
Fab.
That's just fine.
Is that okay for everyone? Yeah, they're all nodding.
Oh no.
Oh no, we'll go back.
Yeah, I can't get rid of Tony's face.
Oh,
We do.
I hope I'm not too large on the screen. I am kind of hoping that
No,
the
you're
screen is bigger than my face.
No, the slideshow's bigger.
Oh, good. Thank goodness for that. Wonderful. And it's so exciting to be here because I've, like you say, I've done trips to China many times in the past and I've seen the impact it has on children. And I'm really excited to be able to offer the opportunity again next year. It does feel very new and very scary, I think, for a lot of you people because nobody's thought about travel for a long time. So I'm here to kind of reassure you about the trips. Obviously, we're going to have to think of contingency and be flexible about potential COVID restrictions, but basically I'm going to explain to you how we normally run our trips and how we are planning on it should run at Easter. And I really want to congratulate Mrs. Bushell because she did an amazing job getting this funding for your school and for your students to be able to have this trip, which is very exciting. So basically, trip to China, Easter 22 is the plan, and you have funding to go. So if I go through the presentation, my marketing team have made it very pretty and interactive, so it might be a little bit slow. So I'm going to tell you a bit about us as a company, obviously about China, and why you should go. And I'm hoping I've got a video to show you of students that have been before, just to give you an idea of what to expect, because I think visual explanations are better than my description any day. So hopefully the video will work. If not, like we said, we'll share this presentation and the link to videos so you can see previous trips and what's happened on them. Okay. So True Education Partnerships, as I say, we're actually based on the Wirral, in Liverpool on the Wirral, and we have been doing so these sort of trips, we've been setting up sister school partnerships successfully for the past 11 years. The Wirral and Taitang were one of our very first partnerships, but we also work with Bristol and Guangzhou, Nottingham, Ningbo, Derby and Hefei. We're in Sunderland with their connections in Wuhan. We've got connections at Bristol, Surrey and Kent as well now, to Chengdu. So we do this all over the UK. And lots of different areas of China also. And because we work with local authorities and sister cities in China, we have been introduced to Education Bureau and Foreign Affairs offices in China to connect with the schools and set up the partnerships. So it's recognized at a government level. So all these trips, the local authorities, like the Foreign Affairs Office and their Education Bureau in the China areas know that you're there, so that it's all secure and backed by them as well. The schools have to get permission, so it's all very recognized, excuse me, it's an official partnership. So as we've been doing this a long time, and we always we have partners on the ground we work with. We still have one member of staff in our Shanghai office. We've had to let a lot of them go because of the pandemic, but we still have a regular person there. And we have great partners in China who put on an amazing experience for you. So that's the sort of background to True Education Partnerships. Next slide. Okay, so why China? I think China has changed on the world stage a lot recently. Everyone has varying views on China, and people's perception of China has changed a lot over the years as well. It is going to be the largest economy in the world, whether we like it or not. I think Mr. Trump has helped that with the American economy, but that's I should get off my soapbox. So basically, it is going to be the largest economy in the world, which also means that it is going to have an impact on economies around the world to do business with it. It is also expanding its reach to a lot of countries. So a lot of companies within the UK are also China owned and backed. So it doesn't necessarily mean you have to go to China to get the benefit of knowing about China. This has the same impact on your own doorstep. The size of the population, 1 in 5 people in the world are Chinese. 1.35 billion is a lot of zeros. And it doesn't mean an awful lot until you actually go to the country. Believe me, when you go to Shanghai, and you see the sheer volume of people that are there, you'll appreciate what 1.35 billion looks like. I mean, it's just huge. If you think that, London has about 6 million, Shanghai has 23 million people just in that one city. So that might give you a bit of an idea. The breadth of culture. China has obviously been a continuous civilization for 2,000 years. So the depth of culture there is amazing, what you're going to experience. If you ask the Chinese, they invented everything from ice cream to fireworks to paper. It all came from China originally. Obviously Mandarin is a very useful language to learn if you're learning it, or if you like to learn it. It's the best way to experience to learn a language, obviously, is to be immersed by the culture. You are also going to be, your children will be representing the country. You'll be ambassadors for the country. It's still very unusual for school children, especially primary age, to go all the way to China. And they will be very, very popular there, because everybody will be amazed at seeing a young group of students in China. So they will be center of attention a lot of the time, which is not a bad thing. They can't get lost. They have to get used to being photographed and being paid attention to. But so you're representing obviously Raeburn, they'll be representing the Wirral, they'll be representing UK, they'll be representing a lot of our culture to in the China, obviously, to me. And again, it does improve CVs, it improves opportunities for the future if they want to put it on there, for careers like joining university. They've been to China. That sort of experience and you can't beat the skills and the confidence they get from doing international travel. You can't put a price on it. It's absolutely amazing. So it improves their future potential. It also opens their eyes to what is out there, gives them more confidence in thinking, what am I going to do when I go to secondary school? What subjects would I like to travel because because I've seen things in China that have made me think, if you know what I mean. And having the sister school in Taitang makes it a much more immersive experience. Having a sister school means there's a longer term relationship. They will host the students, so you can actually go into school, go to lessons, meet peers of your own age, and see what life would have been like if you'd been born in China, what school would have been like. Believe me, it's very different. I think that's one good thing about China as opposed to any European countries. It's a very different culture to experience. A lot of European countries have too many similarities in a way. So as I said, Taitang is if you look at the shape of China, everyone says it looks like a chicken. So the chicken head at the top and the tail on the left, which means that Shanghai and a lot of the population are in the belly of the chicken, you see what I mean? It's on the coast. So a lot of the development in China starts from the coast, and it goes sort of back in time almost as you progress further inland. So the most developed areas are all around the coast. Like I say, Shanghai has a population of 23 million. Taitang is a tiny little area compared to Shanghai. And in China, it's a development area, but it still has, 630,000 people in there. And it is a beautiful place. I'll say there's some pictures there for you to show you where it is and things to visit. The Wirral itself has an agreement with Taitang dating back, they brought us on board in 2011, it began in 2008. So it is twinned for all sorts of things like tourism, inward investment, and all that sort of thing. So the education aspect of it will help the relationship with Wirral and Taitang, as well as giving your students an amazing opportunity to develop their cultural capital, if you like, their assets and skills about China. With its proximity to Shanghai, obviously, it's very popular for commuting for the students there, for the population there, but there's also lots of really good universities, and Xiaojiao University is linked to Liverpool University. So there is that connection for further education too. I know next JTLU, you could, well, you used to, I think you still can, do almost an English degree or part of a degree in connection with Liverpool University, so you could get it funded to actually do some of your degree out there. There are so many potential opportunities that this can provide you. It's amazing. Obviously, I'm a fanatic and a bit passionate, as you can see, about it. What I'm trying to see is if I'm hoping this video will work, but you'll have to bear with me. If it doesn't work, give me a shout, because I'm hoping you can hear the sound, because that also helps. So let's see if this video works. Can you hear that? Thumbs up, hopefully. Don't have to start again, sorry. I hope you saw that. You probably recognised a few schools on there. There's Upton Hall, Mosland, St John Plessington, Bidson Avenue Primary, Townfield. There's quite a lot of local Wirral schools that have already been. And if you know any students or parents from those schools, they might be able to ask their opinion too. It is one of those experiences you can't describe, you have to experience. That's just a visual impact. Just wait till you see the sounds and the smells as well that go with it. So basically, it is a life-changing experience to go to the other side of the world to meet peers. It's amazing. It makes you think about your own culture as well as their culture, if you know what I mean. So it's not only raising cultural awareness of other cultures around the world, but it also makes us think, what's British? What are we proud of? Why are we going to share our culture with them? And you can't really beat the sort of lifelong friendship. It's always amazed me how warm and welcoming the Chinese are. They just love to share that. They've got to learn English, so they love to share the chance to speak and get to know more students and peers from their own age, which is fantastic. Okay. So that sort of benefits for the students. So what to expect? We've got the funding for a 10-day trip, which means about 3 days within your sister school, 3 to 4 days sightseeing, depending on the flights. And obviously the travel is will come into this. This is almost a day travel either side, but we also make sure that we're trying to make it as simple as possible. So we make try to find the shortest flights, 1 stop maximum. And obviously we use airlines that are all safe and used to doing those sort of trips. So again, it could be that you normally leave, actually, I'll show you when we get to the itinerary. I've got a sample itinerary for you to give you an idea. And I think it's the next one. Is that when the itinerary is on? Yeah. So basically, they all stay in the hotels. We don't do homestays, but we sometimes try and organise maybe a visit to a household, so you can see where they live, which is mainly in apartments. There's still 1-child policy in most places. They live in apartments. They sometimes have pets. They don't have gardens. So it's a very different way of life. So we might be able to get you a visit at home. Obviously, there'll be the international flight.
Can I butt in there as well and just say, because of the staffing ratios that we're going to have, if we do a home visit where the children go for food at someone's house, one of the things that I will be stipulating is that the adult would go with the children. There'd be in a group of 4 if we can arrange that, so that the children wouldn't go to anybody's houses on their own. Okay. Oh, thanks, Tony.
Yeah, you're so right. The children are never left unsupervised at any time. There'll always be adults with them, like I say, our member of staff is always there as well to act as a guide and translator. They will basically meet you from the airline and accompany you the whole time to make sure the itinerary is running smoothly, and if any eventualities, we're there for the support. We've got a big support network on the ground. Local transportation within China is normally by coach. Basically, so we can pick you up at the hotel door. You're on the coach in your own group. You're not mixing with the public on public transport, and you're dropped off at the school for the visit and that sort of thing. Meals are in restaurants nearly all the time. Restaurants, and I've got all the accommodation and the restaurants are all geared up for Western visitors. We want you to get the authentic feel, but obviously not too authentic. So they are all certified to be able to host Western visitors, basically. The visa applications, the visa office, we're hoping there's not going to be a lot of changes. When it's open, we will help you with all the visa applications. Most of our staff are Chinese, so they know how to process that once we know what the new regulations are going to be. All sightseeing activities to be included. So like you say, let me go through to the itinerary, because I think that gives you more of an idea of what I mean by, I think that's the next one. So this is the sample itinerary. It's proposed because obviously at the moment we don't know the exact day of the flight you'll be on, so what time you're going to arrive. So there could be slight shifts in this.
Sorry, Tony. Hi, Tony. Sorry. It's a little bit small in the hall here. People at home will be able to see, but would you be able to just go through day by day just to explain? Thank you.
Yes, I'll read it out. You will be sick of my voice. So basically, you normally leave Manchester. It's quite often afternoon flights, and the flight, you're in the air for about 10 or 11 hours. So depending on how many, if it's a transfer and 1 stop, you normally arrive the next morning in Shanghai. So it's morning when you arrive in Shanghai. It will probably feel body clock, it'll be quite early hours of the morning. So we do recommend they try and sleep on the plane. With the excitement, it might be difficult, but they usually manage it. But I do find, especially with children, they hit the ground running. They're so full of adrenaline that they're fine. So you'd arrive in Shanghai, which we're technically calling day 2. And we normally take you to see things like the Bund, which is fresh air. It's the famous site, the river site you always see of Shanghai, with the Pearl Tower opposite on the river. And behind you actually would look familiar, because the architecture of the buildings on the Bund was designed by the same person who did the Three Graces and the waterfront of Liverpool. So there's a strong familiarity on one side, and all the big shiny lights on the other side for on the Bund. So like I said, you're eating in local restaurants, and it's usually sort of banquet style. We will select about 9. There's normally about 9 dishes, things that we know you hopefully like something of. So there'll always be rice and noodles. They usually do Pepsi and lemonade as drinks, or Chinese tea. And there'll be a meat dish and a vegetable dish, and you've got to try it. It will be different, and hopefully you'll try it with chopsticks as well. But they will supply knives and forks if you must. And again, like I say, we're staying in local hotels, so you'll be booking into a hotel that evening. You'll have that first night would be in Shanghai, And the next day, because normally we try to do it so that you leave on a Friday, so that you've got the weekend for the sightseeing before you go into the sister schools for the weekdays. So the following day, which is quite often a Sunday, you'll be doing more local sightseeing and transferring through Suzhou to Taitang and do some sightseeing on the way there. Suzhou is where the actually XJTLU University is based as well. It's a bit of a water town, a bit like Zhujiajiao, which you'll visit. Again, I'll mention later on. So it's another day of sightseeing, and then that night you'll have transferred to Taitang, which is only about an hour away, an hour and a half away by coach, and that's where the sister school is based. So you'll then spend the next 3 days in school, and they are amazing hosts. They all try and impress you, basically. So they'll go to great lessons, they'll do calligraphy, they'll do lots of dance lessons, but lots of cultural activities and opportunities to mix with the pupils. And have a chance to chat, but they do like showing off, so they will treat you amazingly. You'll eat in the school canteen, and when I say, you know, school canteen, they also have loads of choice, but they probably will select your dishes for you rather than you go up in the queues of the average size school is probably about, well, maybe 2,000, 1,500 to 2,000 at primary level. Secondary schools have about 4,000 students in, so they are about 3 or 4 times the size of our schools, and the resources are amazing. And on that video, when you see them standing on the ground doing their exercises, they do actually do those exercises every day. They'll probably make you join in with that as well. So the experiences are, that's when I speak to students when they come back, that's the bit they remember the most. The bit when they go to school and mix with their peers, that has the biggest impact on them, other than sightseeing. I mean, the sightseeing's okay, but for their age, it's mixing with peers, it's awesome. So obviously after 3 days in the school, we'll go back to Shanghai via Zhujiajiao. Now, Zhujiajiao is a water town. There's lots of canals, and there's a small boat ride, and it's very sort of traditional one. If you've ever seen, I think it was Mission Impossible 3 or 4, where you see Tom Cruise running down the streets and jumping through places over canals, that was actually filmed there in that sort of place. So that sort of gives you an idea of what it looks like anyway. It's a bit like they call it almost Venice. A lot of traffic and trade is done on the water, and it's all geared up for sight. It's actually an attraction, so it's geared up for tourists. So that's really exciting to go to. And then you've still got hopefully 2 more days sightseeing around Shanghai as well. So things like the Shanghai
Stuck in
Museum.
traffic.
Oh, sorry. Do you want to stay muted? Sorry, guys at home. So basically, there's the Shanghai Museum, Yuyuan Gardens, and the Temple Gardens there are amazing. That's where you probably do a lot of the shopping for gifts home, the usual sort of touristy knickknacks to bring home. Yuyuan Gardens actually. That it was on the television in the UK when I think a few presidents and prime ministers, I know Theresa May visited it, might have been on there, but it's a traditional market with lots and lots of stalls selling all sorts, and then the Yuyuan Gardens in the middle of it, which are just really lovely traditional gardens. So that's a very busy day. That's probably the shopping day before you come home. And the other sort of Shanghai sightseeing that we quite often try and get in are I'm trying to think other ones you might go to. Yeah, there are other shopping streets, and there are temples. I'm trying to think. So yeah, again with the sightseeing, we can give you an idea of what you're going to see, and you can Google them online as well and have a look at the sort of places. And again, you'll be staying in hotels in Shanghai for the last couple of nights, and depending on the flight, some flights are evening flights on the way back or morning flights. So basically, because China is 7 hours ahead of us, you'll be sort of arriving the same day. So if you leave in the morning, you'll be arriving sort of mid-afternoon the same day. You leave that evening, you'll be arriving still at night, if you know what I mean. But that's sort of the plan for the 10 days. That's how the 10 days will pan out. I hope that sort of makes sense to you. And again, what we're going to have to work with slightly with COVID is what the restrictions for getting into some of the sightseeing places. It might take a bit longer for queues and to having to get checks. They might still be doing temperature checks and that sort of thing to get into them. But we are still planning to get as many of these sightseeing places in as possible. Okay, so I hope that has given you sort of a flavour for the 10 days. Sort of the key questions that I'm sort of trying to run through that, like I say, we're planning on going next Easter. The dates are to be confirmed as well. Bush will keep you ahead with those. The costs, again, you're so lucky that you don't have to pay anything particularly, maybe the visa costs, because that's one thing that the Turing scheme didn't cover. The Turing scheme, as Mr. Bushell said, was set up by our government replace the European funding that we used to have for Erasmus. So it's technically not supposed to cover absolutely everything, which is why they haven't included visa in the funding, but it does include your flights and most of everything else we can get within the budget. Like I said, it's flights, it's the accommodation, it's the internal transport, all meals while you're there, all the sightseeing, our guides. I'd say other than insurance and spending money and the visas, everything's included in what we've put together for you. Like I say, we've been doing this for years. I think nearly 10. It must be 10 years now that we've been doing this, and it's all our support with the filling in the visa as well. Things about with the visa, we do need to get you to check your passports. That's going to be on the next slide, I think. So we need to make sure you've got 6 months valid. Oh, it's COVID next slide. 6 months valid on your passport. And obviously, when the data is collected by your school, we'll need to know all the information, like the name as it appears on the passport, date of birth, and everything like that for each traveller. So it's easier to send us a scan of the passport information page, so we know. And if you haven't got a British passport, we'd also do need to kind of know which one. They accept most European passports and a few countries. It just depends on the political agreement between some countries and China as to what the regulations are. You might need extra documentation if you're from a different country. And sometimes they like to see stamps in the passport. For instance, if you've been somewhere in the Middle East, even Turkey, they do question that because they think you've been to an ISIS camp or something ridiculous like that. But there are some of the visas, some of the stamps in the passport as well, we could do with knowing what's in the passport just for the visa process. So like I say, we can't talk about traveling without talking about COVID. So currently we are constantly monitoring. Obviously, we've got 6 schools planning to go out next Easter. I've got 2 or 3 schools also going out the following October. So we're obviously monitoring the situation. China's vaccination program is amazing. They've got nearly 1 billion people vaccinated. So all the developed area on the coast is virtually all vaccinated now. They're also hosting the Winter Olympics in January. So they will be reviewing how they let people in and out of the country. The DFE and the FCO guidance tends to be a little bit slower on catching up, I find, but we are keeping a monitor on what they are posting all the time because it is changing. So we can only really predict what it's like to be because of this fast pace of change. We do foresee that by next Easter, when you're planning on traveling, things will have settled down, and obviously travel insurance will be to cover that as well. So we're looking at putting contingencies in place and doing due diligence and making sure we're flexible. So if by any chance it's not feasible to travel next Easter, because we would not risk taking your children anywhere that wasn't going to be safe or secure, we might need to maybe look at different dates in the future, but at the moment it's looking good to go next Easter. It's just consider flexibility. I say we do our own sort of risk assessments on the ground, which we can share with the school and that sort of thing as well. But our staff will always be there to help with any eventuality. So there doesn't need to be any worries about translating or knowing how to cope with situations. We will be there. And constant communications with the school too. So like I was just mentioning before, check the passports. We're here to help with visas. And again, the sooner we know numbers and confirmation of who wants to go, the better. So there will be a health form as well. So any allergies or sort of special requirements that are needed, as long as they're noted on the form, we can cope with it. In the past, we've taken celiacs, we've taken lots of different allergies, nut allergies. As long as we're aware of it, it's fine. It can be dealt with because food that tends to be prepared fresh. We can always obviously put in vegetarian options, and we make sure that there's a variety of dishes that they will eat, they will try. And if they're really desperate, we have been known to visit McDonald's or a Western branch of something to make sure they'll eat something. Quite often we will take them to a supermarket, which is another amazing experience. They have Tesco's out there actually, and there's huge Wonder stores which are enormous, so they can have a trip to the supermarket where they can buy a load of rubbish they can eat in the hotels if they want to, like drinks and sweets and crisps and Western food that they can find in the supermarkets. But we do need to make sure, we have been known to have to frisk them because they sell things like live animals. My own son decided to try and bring a frog home in his pocket, a coloured frog, bright green one, that was dyed that he got in the markets. I had to make sure that stayed in China, so that they amazing opportunity to see these sort of things. So they won't starve. Like I say, they will be they will enjoy it, hopefully, because it is such a different culture. So as I say, you can always find out more about us. We've got a website, Twitter and everything. And is there any questions? I have thrown out an awful lot of information, so there's bound to be.
Tony, just before we go on to questions, can I just say about this form, and then we'll do some questions.
Yes, please do.
Parents at home, we're going to send this form out to everybody who expressed interest tomorrow. But what the form is basically asking for a firm commitment, because from next week we need to get the travel insurance sorted. We need to start looking at companies and looking into the COVID part of it, make sure that everything is covered. And then very soon after that, we're going to start to need to book flights. So the form is basically asking you to send me a copy of your child's passport. If you could just do either photocopy or scan it. We will obviously destroy it once we've used it for the purposes of booking the flights. Tony also did mention, when we come to do the visas, we don't need to do this yet, but when we come to do the visas, we may possibly need to ask if you've been to any other places, just so that we can fill in the visas, but we'll ask that later on. So this form is asking for a copy of the child's passport page, and then for the deposit. And I know I sent in my letter, the reason for asking for the deposit is purely just to show that level of commitment, because we're going to have to start to incur costs when we start making deposits on flights. If your child comes on the trip with us, then that deposit will go towards the other monies that we might need. We don't know the exact costs of everything yet. We know, and I think I've shared with you how much money we've been given from the Turing Foundation, so we expect the flights are going to be well covered. And Tony has said to me she thinks we are more than able to cover all the hotels, all the food, all the entry, the buses in China, and the translator, because we will have a translator with us all the time, including in the hotels, who will stay with us in China. So the only costs we think we're going to have are the visas, which we're not quite sure. In the past, they have been around about £200, possibly, but maybe 150. You're not really sure on the cost of those at the moment, are you? Because of the changing things.
Yeah.
Then the insurance. You can take your own insurance out, but we will need to get insurance, and I have no idea what that will be with COVID restrictions, but that will be shared between obviously the cost for the children. And then the other thing is Tony has suggested that we get transport from school to the airport and back again, purely because if people do individual drop-offs, there's always a risk of you not arriving there on time, etc., etc. So she says, in terms of for us, it's far less stress on us to get everybody on a bus and you say goodbye. So that will be the only other cost, and then spending money. But from my experience when I went to China, and I've visited many of the places that Tony has talked about this evening, the cost of things was fairly cheap. So children won't need a lot of money to spend. They will be fed. We won't be going to many supermarkets, Alfie. I know you were very excited, but we won't have time. You will definitely get fed lots. So we will have some shopping days, but they won't have huge amounts of time to go shopping. So they will be the only cost. So although there is still some cost compared to if we didn't have this funding, you know, it is absolutely amazing that we've been able to get this funding to offer this opportunity for the children. So this form, I've got some here by Mrs. Hayes. Do take it and send it back in by Friday, please. And everyone at home, by Friday, please, if you could get this back to us, just so we know numbers. Okay. Are there any questions in the hall? Lots of questions. Hello.
She hasn't got a passport at the moment.
Yeah.
So we have to apply.
Okay.
Go.
Yes, that will be okay, Tony, won't it? We've got an individual who needs to apply for a passport. If you can obviously get this form to me, and if you are in the process of getting your application, the flights aren't booked yet, and probably, as you know, when you've booked holidays yourselves, you put the initial information in, but you don't need the final information till later on. So yeah, definitely, if you want Abigail to come, send it in, please. Thank you. Okay, so the same, if your passport, basically you'd need about a year on it now, because you need 6 months when we come back. And I know the government are quite strict on that at passport control coming back into the country. So if you're in that same position and it's going to run out, can you basically send me what you've got for now? And then obviously if you can get the application done as soon as possible. Thank you. Mr. McVeigh, did you have your hand up? No, sorry. It does sound amazing, doesn't it? Yes, Miss. I do know which staff are going. Yes. So the plan at the moment is for myself to go and Miss Hutchinson, who's also a member of SLT. Then we have got Mr. Ashcroft, Mr. Cossins, Mrs. Hayes, Miss Lawrence, Miss Kennedy, and Mr. Thomas. Thank you for helping. So they're the staff who will be going. Are there any other questions in the hall? Sorry, at home. Are you okay just to mute for a minute? Thank you. So our parents just asked, will the children be with friends? Because we're going to have high ratios and because obviously it's an international trip, I think in the hotels, the children tend to be in rooms. Tony might be able to reassure me on this. The children will probably be in rooms of 2. Is that correct, Tony?
Yes, then we never have single rooms for children. They're always in pairs, and again, it's up to you who you allocate the rooms to, so they can choose to put their buddies.
So we would work with yourselves so that all the children were happy with who they would be in a room with. Also then the adults, obviously because we're in hotels, the adults would be in rooms by the children all the time. Then in terms of the groups of 4, we would have an adult assigned to a group of 4, so they'd have 2 lots of 2. And we will all be together all the time, apart from if we went to visit anybody's house. And then, as I've said, I would only be happy to do that if the adult could go with the children to the house. So we'd have to make sure that the families were comfortable with that. So yeah, we would work to make sure that your children were happy with the groupings, because I know it's not like an Anglesey or Colomendy trip. It's a very different experience. We want everybody to be as happy as they could be. Are there any other questions from the hall? Any questions at home? No, okay. If anybody thinks of any questions, oh sorry, we've got another question in the hall.
Are there any vaccinations at the 12?
Okay, that's a good question and one that I don't know the answer to. The only way adults may well be expected to, Tony and I discussed it the other day. China currently are not allowing visitors into the country, so they will plan their restrictions and tell us what's allowed. She did not think that children would be expected to have vaccinations, and obviously in our country we're not giving children vaccinations, so we wouldn't be able to run the trip if that was a stipulation, I think. Is that correct, Tony?
Yes, I don't think the under 12s qualify for any vaccinations, and I think it's actually under 16s.
Yeah, although there was something breaking news today about 12 to 15-year-olds, so possibly it's changing. But if that was a stipulation from China, and obviously it doesn't fit with what our government is doing, then that would be one of the reasons that we would not be able to do the trip.
I'm not sure whether the question was just about COVID vaccinations. I think it was possibly.
Okay, sorry. It's all in my head, isn't it? Tony, yeah. Other vaccinations, sorry.
No worries. Yes, I would say if you know your child best, normally because we're going to very developed areas, you don't need a vaccination, but check with your doctor because your doctor will know best. Sometimes they'll say maybe a Hep C or a typhoid. Most children have got still the typhoid still because they have those boosters anyway. So I would check with your GP, but you don't. Most times in the past we haven't, and I've not actually had any vaccinations going, but for your own safety, for your own security and reassurance, you could always check with your GP, but we don't normally say you have to have any other vaccinations. The one thing I would like to say is that, sorry, Mr. Bushell, because I also want to say that they don't drink water from taps anyway. They have to have bottled water, and that's provided all the time, which is, again, another health issue, say health and safety issue. Bottled water at all times, but that's provided everywhere you go. And again, even for washing, brushing your teeth and that sort of thing. Washing's okay, but brushing your teeth and all drinking water is bottled, and all food is prepared fresh, and we only go to restaurants that serve that. So like I say, it doesn't really need any vaccinations for that.
Okay, thank you. We do have another question here as well, Logan.
What if someone hasn't been on a plane before?
Oh, that is a very good question. What if someone has not been on a plane before? Well, we would all be together and we would look after children, and we would make sure that they were sat with someone they were feeling very comfortable with. And if you've not been on a plane before, the chances are you would love it. And the planes that you go on to China, they're really big planes, and they have telly screens, so you get to watch films, and then they give you really nice food as well. They're really posh planes. Have you got anything else to add, Tony? Have you got lots of experience of taking children who've not been on planes?
Oh, that's right. It's an adventure. It's really exciting. I say, because you're with your friends, a lot of other people will be frightened too. So if you're worried, don't worry about it. I would look at the teachers, and I bet you any money they're as frightened as you are about taking off and landing. But it is, like you say, it's exciting. It's an adventure. And because it's so big, it doesn't feel like, very scary, because once you're inside the plane, you don't realize much else. And with videos and games to play, it's very distracting. Or just go to sleep.
Well, thank you everybody at home. Thank you, Tony. Really appreciate you coming. And as I've said, if there's any other questions from anybody, if you email them into school, and we'll get them answered as soon as we can. We'll send the things out to people at home, so please do get them back to us by Friday, just so we know numbers and we can start to make bookings. And I'm going to leave the virtual and then say goodbye to everybody here. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Tony.
Go for now then. Bye.
Thank you everybody for coming.